It is a staggering number to comprehend. $3.5 trillion. That is the size of the budget for next year, the largest in history, being sent to Congress by the president. Staggering also the size of the deficit, $1.75 trillion. In other words, 1 out of every $2 spent by the government will be deficit spending. But the budget is more than a big number. If enacted, it would lead to a seismic shift in policies and would touch the lives of nearly every American. Jake Tapper is on the lawn of the White House again tonight. Jake?
Good evening, Charlie. Well, this $3.5 trillion budget outline represents a break from the past in a dramatic, if not radical, fashion. President Obama is attempting to redirect vast sums of wealth from wealthy individuals and businesses to people from lower incomes and ambitious and costly programs for the environment, education, and health care.
The president said his budget makes tough choices.
I don't think that we can continue on our current course. I work for the American people, and I'm determined to bring the change that the people voted for last November.
That change begins with new priorities, such as $770 billion in tax cuts over the next 10 years for the middle class, $150 billion for alternative energy sources, and $634 billion for a health care reserve fund to pay for whatever health reform Congress devises.
You're never going to reach the place you need to be in terms of fiscal responsibility unless you reform health care.
Much of the spending is being done with money the government does not have, creating a $1.75 trillion deficit next year alone.
The president's beginning to make President Bush look like a piker when it comes to spending.
Almost $1 trillion of the spending, $989 billion, comes from new taxes over the course of the next 10 years, starting in 2011. Most of them targeted at families earning more than $250,000 a year. These individuals face $636 billion in new taxes. That includes $338 billion from letting the Bush income tax cuts expire, but also an increase in the capital gains tax and a lowering of the deduction for charitable giving. A tax hike budget director Peter Orszag disagreed would discourage giving.
The recovery itself will provide a strong boost not only to charities but to the overall economy and to the people who contribute to charities.
President Obama would push an additional $353 billion in new tax hikes on businesses.
The president doesn't believe that the changes that are being made would hinder economic growth.
On Capitol Hill, President Obama's former Commerce Secretary nominee, New Hampshire Republican Senator Judd Gregg, disagreed.
So if you've got a restaurant or you have a small business and you're getting hit now with a tax rate that's going to jump from 35% up to 41%, well, where do you pay for that? You lay people off.
One other interesting note, the budget has what the administration calls a placeholder for additional funds to bail out banks or financial institutions, up to $750 billion worth, Charlie, just in case.